complaint to the FBI involving Epstein that predates the investigations that were public, the ones in the mid-2000s and then ultimately in
For decades,
2019.
Hollywood lived behind closed doors, protected by fame, money, and influence. The public saw glamour, success, and carefully crafted images, while the real power moved quietly behind the scenes. When the Epstein files were unsealed, the shock did not come from accusations alone, but from visibility. Names, connections, and elite circles suddenly became part of public conversation. Hollywood was not placed on trial, but it was no longer hidden, and from that moment forward, the industry could never operate the same way again. Hollywood's old system of protection. For generations, Hollywood survived on silence. Studios controlled narratives, agents resolved problems quietly, and publicists ensured that uncomfortable stories never reached the audience. Elite parties, private jets, and exclusive retreats were normal parts of the entertainment ecosystem. Relationships between celebrities, financiers, and powerful figures were rarely questioned. This system depended on discretion, trust, and closed doors. The Epstein files disrupted that balance by introducing legal transparency into spaces that had long resisted scrutiny. The Epstein files as a cultural shockwave. The Epstein files were not rumors or tabloid stories. They were court documents, depositions, testimonies, and records made public through legal processes. While they did not accuse Hollywood as an institution, they revealed how closely fame and power often overlapped. Proximity itself became news. Hollywood realized that association could be questioned years later, regardless of context. Control over history was no longer guaranteed, and reputations could be reshaped by records long forgotten. 1. Tom Hanks and the rise of misinformation. Fear Tom Hanks became an example of how quickly misinformation could spread in the new environment. Despite never appearing in Epstein court records or investigations, online speculation connected his name to the narrative. There was no evidence, no documents, and no legal basis, yet the rumor cycle moved fast. Hollywood recognized a dangerous shift. Truth alone could no longer protect a reputation. Silence allowed false stories to grow, and the Epstein era revealed how fragile public trust had become. 2. Oprah Winfrey and the question of influence. Oprah Winfrey represents influence at a global level, which made her name a frequent target in online speculation despite no appearance in Epstein-related filings. The absence of evidence did not stop discussion. Hollywood began to understand that influence itself was now viewed with suspicion. The public no longer asked only who committed crimes, but who moved within powerful circles. The Epstein files changed expectations, forcing celebrities to demonstrate ethical distance even when no wrongdoing existed. 3. Cameron Diaz and guilt by proximity. Cameron Diaz experienced brief moments of speculative media coverage without any supporting records or investigations. While quickly dismissed, the situation revealed a larger issue. Hollywood realized that casual social overlap could be misinterpreted years later when context fades. Invitations, events, and associations began to carry risk. The Epstein files taught the industry that time erases explanations, but names remain, making preventive caution essential. 4. Quentin Tarantino and industry reckoning. Although Quentin Tarantino was never named in Epstein documents, the cultural impact of the files intensified conversations already happening around Hollywood accountability. The industry began examining how power structures protected certain figures for decades. Silence started to feel complicit. The Epstein case accelerated a reckoning that forced Hollywood to confront uncomfortable truths about who was protected and why. The era of ignoring systemic issues quietly came to an end. 5. Brad Pitt and the new era of vetting. Brad Pitt's career remained untouched by Epstein-related allegations, yet the industry around him changed dramatically. Studios expanded vetting processes, increased transparency around travel and associations, and rewrote morality clauses in contracts. Prevention replaced damage control. The Epstein files forced Hollywood to realize that reputation protection had to begin long before a crisis appeared, even for the most respected names. 6. Gwyneth Paltrow and lifestyle transparency. Gwyneth Paltrow's public image, built around openness and personal branding, became more relevant in the Epstein era. Although never connected to Epstein records, the cultural shift encouraged celebrities to control their narratives proactively. Transparency became a form of protection. Hollywood personalities learned that values, lifestyle, and openness mattered as much as talent. Silence was replaced by visibility, and trust became a measurable asset. 7. Johnny Depp and the end of private crisis management. Johnny Depp's unrelated legal battles demonstrated how public judgment now forms in real time. While not connected to Epstein, the timing highlighted a critical lesson for Hollywood. Private settlements and quiet resolutions no longer stayed private. Documents surfaced, opinions spread, and digital records remained permanent. The Epstein files reinforced the idea that crisis management had moved entirely into the public arena, changing how studios and celebrities handled conflict. 8. Angelina Jolie and ethical positioning. Angelina Jolie's humanitarian work gained new importance in a world shaped by the Epstein files. Hollywood recognized that ethical positioning was no longer optional. Power without visible responsibility invited suspicion. Celebrities increasingly aligned themselves with causes, advocacy, and transparency. The industry learned that moral clarity was not just about image, but about long-term survival in a skeptical public landscape. 9. Models, agencies, and structural change. The modeling and fashion industries felt the impact deeply. Agencies revised travel policies, strengthened consent protections, and implemented stricter oversight for young talent. The Epstein files forced real structural reform, not symbolic gestures. Hollywood began prioritizing safety systems over image preservation, understanding that accountability protected both individuals and institutions. 10. Studios and the end of silent settlements. Studios changed from the inside out. Legal departments gained greater authority, risk assessment replaced blind loyalty, and transparency became policy. The Epstein files proved that secrets do not stay buried. Documents resurface, and silence creates liability. Hollywood adapted by embracing disclosure and documentation, ending the era of invisible resolutions. Audience power. After Epstein, audiences changed as well. Blind admiration faded, replaced by skepticism and demand for transparency. Viewers learned to separate performance from personal conduct. Public memory became permanent in the digital age. Hollywood no longer controlled interpretation alone. The Epstein files empowered audiences to question, analyze, and remember, shifting power away from institutions. What Hollywood learned. The Epstein files did not accuse Hollywood as a whole. They revealed vulnerability. They demonstrated that power leaves records, association brings responsibility, and secrecy eventually expires. The myth of untouchable fame collapsed. Hollywood learned that ethics, transparency, and accountability were no longer optional tools, but necessary foundations for survival. Hollywood once thrived on illusion, but the Epstein files dismantled that model without spectacle, not through accusation, but through exposure. They reminded the industry that influence leaves traces, silence carries consequences, and history always resurfaces. Hollywood did not collapse. It evolved under pressure. And in a world where records never disappear, accountability is no longer a choice. It is the only future.